notice your sketchbook page when you open the app. To the right of that is daily activities, and they're just fun activities for you to practice your skills using the tools that are available to you in Sketches Pro. Next to the right is Sketches Community, and here you can see this beautiful artwork that people have created using Sketches Pro, so take a look and get inspired by the different artists. To the right is Learn Sketches, and here are different videos for you to practice the different tools and learn about different features. Here you can see the fill tool, so how to make something in color. You can remove all the tools so you have a bigger working area. You can change the color and make a gradient, so changing it from blue to purple in this video. Here you can see that there's a pixel tool. The watercolor wet brush tool, which we are going to be using the watercolor tool a lot in this project, so let's watch this one. So you can see that they have the paintbrush selected. Once you click on the paintbrush, there's more tools available to you. They're just kind of clicking around. Notice that it's working like a normal paintbrush, so you can see there's some dark areas, there's some lighter areas, and it really blends together beautifully. You can tap your finger on where you're painting and it'll add some paint splotches. The tool that they just clicked was the dry tool, so it'll dry your paintbrush and then you can add more layers. Here are just some more of the videos that are available to you. So after this project, if you find that you really like this app, feel free to learn a little bit more about it. We're just touching the surface. We're basically using two tools. But I do think it's important that you guys know all the tools that are available to you for future projects. First, you have the pencil, so just drawing like a normal pencil. You have the pen tool, which has some thicker lines. You have the felt pen tool, which has rounder edges, and the paint pen that gives it like a paintbrush effect. Pastels, acrylic paint, watercolor, which is what we're going to be using a lot. You have this fun airbrush tool that looks like spray paint. You have different shapes that you can make. You can free draw your own shapes. You can fill things in with color after you've drawn it. You can blend things out. You can use the cutting tool to cut and copy. The ruler to make straight edges. So if you scroll all the way back to the beginning, you'll notice a little yellow sketchbook. If you click inside of that, you can see all of your pages. So you'll click on that sketchbook and then all of your artwork will pop up, or you can create a new one. So this is where all of your artwork is kept. So here you can see that I've created a new artboard, a new canvas, as you might say. Here I'm showing you the pen tool. It's kind of like a Sharpie marker. You can see you can change the opacity and the size by clicking on the right of your screen. Just kind of play around with the different features before you decide on one that you're going to use for your blind contour line drawings. You don't want to be drawing and then after a minute of drawing realize you don't like the brush. So kind of play around and figure out how to use the tools appropriately first. So even just like scribbling on the page, figuring out how it works, that really helps figure out how you want to do your drawings for this project. So I decided on the third one from the top. I clicked on it. I found the size that I liked. I found that I liked working with a smaller tip for my brush because once we start coloring these in, it just leaves a little bit more negative space, so more blank space to add some more color. The thicker the line you have, the less color is going to show, so just kind of keep that in mind. So here you can see I'm working on my first blind contour line drawing. I'm drawing one of my plants that I have in my living room. I'm looking at the subject. I'm not looking down at my paper or my iPad screen. You might find that you do need to peek at your screen just to make sure you're not like filling things in with color and hitting weird tools or deleting anything. So just check briefly every once in a while. And then, see, I kind of went off the screen here. and I'm choosing colors randomly. So like I was saying, like you might need to actually look at your screen every once in a while to make sure. Here I accidentally changed the color to white, so I was just scribbling white on a white piece of paper. So I fixed that, and then I'm just gonna start where I left off, and I'm gonna draw the bottom of my planter for my plant that's in my living room. You can see some of the lines aren't lining up, and I think it looks totally weird, but that's fine because that's what we're looking for here. We're not looking for perfection. So I'm going to start a new one. I went back to the main screen, and I'm just going to keep going. And for your project, I am requiring you to do at least 5 blind contour line drawings, but feel free to do more. I did some that I don't really like, so I liked having the option to pick and choose what I use on my project. Like the one I'm making right now, I didn't end up liking. I found that I actually liked more of the organic, like plants or people's faces or my dog. Some of the rounder edges kind of caught my eye a little bit more. Stuff that's very square, it's just hard to recreate something like that. So obviously this is a chair that doesn't look quite like a chair, but I'm just going to keep going back to the main screen, and I'm just going to do a fast forward so you can see a quick progression of my drawings. One tip I wanted to mention before I do a time lapse is that you might want to hide your tools by clicking that little L shape in the top left corner. It might be on the bottom left corner on your screen, and then you might also want to lock your screen. Once you have all 5 of your drawings done, you're going to click one open, and then you're going to go to your layers tab at the top, and then notice I'm clicking the eyeball of the bottom layer on and off. The checkerboard means that there's no background to your image. It's almost see-through. Then you can go to the 3 dots at the top when you have it turned off, and you can save your image to your camera roll. Once you do that for one of your images, you're going to go back to your main sketchbook page, and you're going to do that for each photo that you created. So now that you have all of your images and your drawings completed, you've saved them without the background to your camera roll, here's where we start to put everything together. So we're going to go back to our sketchbook, we're going to make a new canvas, a new sheet of paper, and then I'm going to place my new images without the background onto my new page. So I'm just kind of playing around with it. I added it on. Once you click off, you can't really resize. So if you insert your image and you can't resize, you can use that cutting tool, and now you can make it bigger on your screen. Otherwise, you're just zooming in and out of your canvas, your paper. So I'm just kind of playing around with it. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Just kind of figure out what works best for you. I'm going to make a new layer by clicking that little plus button, and then I'm going to add a new photo. And make sure you're adding the photos in that don't have the background. You see how now I can basically see through. The lines are kind of intersecting each other. The lines are overlapping. That's what you want for this project. But just kind of beware, the more you have it overlap, the more coloring and work you're going to have to do later, but it's kind of the fun part. So arrange your images kind of around your page. Right now, this is my second one that I'm kind of playing around with. So you got to get it just right. I like the little overlap kind of right here, so I think that's where I'm gonna just place that one. Once I have that done, I'm going to make a new layer. Click the plus button right there. You always want to add a new layer because then if you accidentally place it and you don't like where you put it, then you can easily just cut using that knife tool and you can move it around. If your images are stuck together, you might be moving both images around. So just for like organization purposes and flexibility, use different layers every time you put a photo in. So you guys are gonna overlap 3 to 4 photos, okay? I know you did 5 or more drawings, but you really only need to use 3 or 4. The more images you have in your drawing, the more work it's going to be for you, and the more coloring you'll have to do. But I think the more it overlaps, the more interesting this piece of art is going to be. So challenge yourself. Don't pick the easy way out. Really try to get an interesting composition, play around with your layers, move things around until you get it just right. Once you have your line drawings in place exactly how you want them, I'm going to merge all of the lines together. So you can see I'm holding my layers down and then I'm dragging it into the layer behind. So earlier in the video, I told you that the more lines that you have overlapping, the more interesting your design is going to be. But sometimes there's just too many lines, right? We can't just be coloring in all of these little tiny places all day, every day. So what I'm doing here is going to my drawing layer in my layers tool. And then I'm using the eraser tool and I'm just erasing some of the really tiny shapes that my lines are making, just to make it easier on myself. So now that I'm finished with all of my lines, I've erased the lines that I don't want, I'm going to start to use the watercolor tool and kind of blend some colors into the shapes that I've created. Notice that you're going to be adding the colors into the enclosed shapes. So you might have some lines trailing off the side. You don't really need to color those in, just the lines that are completely enclosed in a shape. So you're going to have to work back and forth. You might color things in. You might tap your paintbrush on your page to add some paint splatters. You can change the settings into adding water. So adding water makes the paint a little lighter. You might want to decide that you want the blue a little bit lighter, something like I'm doing here. And it kind of blends out the color. Then you can go in with your eraser tool and kind of clean up some of the edges that might have spilled over those black lines. I want you guys to think of this as an actual paintbrush and watercolors. So you might have different size paintbrushes depending on how big or small your shapes are that you need to paint. So really take your time, adjust your brush, work back and forth with the material, just like you would if you were actually painting. So when I reopened this, I realized that I still had probably too many black lines kind of overlapping. So I went to my line layer, so click on your layers tool in the top right, and I'm just going to use my eraser tool and clean up a little bit more of the black lines that I have just to make my watercolor part of the project go a little quicker. One more way to stay organized in your drawing is to have separate layers for each color that you're working with.